The topic that I'm talking about today will bring NIO billions in revenues and, well, justify NIO's valuation and also help to explain why Baillie Gifford gives such a high price target in the long-term future. And what I'm talking about is NIO's capabilities or potential in the area of e-commerce. And I'm showing you some footage of my visit to NIO Live. So basically I've visited NIO houses and a NIO club in Shanghai and also in Suzhou and other places. But basically this gave me a flavor about, well, what is it to be a NIO customer, a NIO user, and also what kind of lifestyle experience you get if you, for instance, are a member and you go to those houses where you have a personal kindergarten. You can attend events, and on top of that is obviously also some merchandise and stuff that you can buy from NIO, both in the NIO houses but as well as on the NIO apps, for instance. So to give you a little bit of context here, China is the biggest e-commerce market in the world. It's more developed than anywhere else. You possibly know already about Alibaba, Singles Day and so on. So they're making, I think, roughly more than 70 billion this year on one single day. And that is exceeding what the German e-commerce market is making an entire year, for instance. So the e-commerce business is much more developed in China. It's much more aggressive, much more volume and much higher adopted. And I think NIO could actually become an interesting player in this field. And the way e-commerce works in China is completely different to what it is used in the West. I personally know that from launching our own e-commerce application into China. It has been very hard for us to acquire users the way we're used to in the West, for instance, with advertisement. You may know that Facebook, Instagram, all of these applications are not available in China. And instead, it's also more important to get user recommendations. So the peer-to-peer network and this whole element of guanxi, like the connections between persons, they are much more important to a successful sales experience and to a happy customer and a checkout. And in the end, this is where NIO is leading. If you look at the net promoter score, they get recommended even more than even Teslas in China. So many of the existing users are recommending other users, and this is the way how you make actual business in China. So this is based on NIO's focus of creating the best user experience possible. And this way, NIO is becoming this user enterprise, or what in Chinese you would call a KOL, a key opinion leader, or Wanghong in Chinese. So these are the influencers that are usually selling to their social audience, to the followers and so on. And in China, NIO is actually the influencer. I think this is kind of the result that we are getting out of here. And this is why the app is so important here. So the NIO app has been downloaded more than 2 million times by now. And this is obviously much more than the user base of the car buyers. So the fleet is only around 80,000 cars. So that means there is much more interest by other users that are not even owning a NIO car, but maybe they are interested in NIO Live or got a recommendation. And also they appreciate, the content that you can see in the NIO app, which is much more than just steering, the car functionalities. So I've been criticizing NIO for the perceived weak other services revenues compared to the car revenues during the last earnings report, for instance. So it doesn't really show up in the numbers currently yet, in the financial numbers. However, what I noticed by using the NIO Car app is that we see much more content coming up in what you could, for instance, buy. So NIO is entering some really interesting stuff here. So this is the landing page for NIO Live in the app, and you can see there's a range of different products, and it's ranging from food and snacks up to other lifestyle products, for instance, clothing, but also for the house, so accessories and even kitchen utilities or stuff for sports. So everything that is actually enabling this kind of new middle class lifestyle with a better consumer experience. And the interesting stuff here is that you see, for instance, their own brands, like this Nomi, Heipi, which is like a dark beer, and it's even called 996, which is kind of the work ethos of the Chinese, working from 9 to 9, 6 days a week. So you can see that NIO is creating their own new products on which they possibly have a higher margin. But in addition to that, also, for instance, collaborating with existing brands like Li-Ning here, which is a sports fashion brand in China, but also Double Happiness, so Shuangxi, which is another Chinese homebrew brand here, but obviously want to grow here with NIO in this premium lifestyle, because this is actually the core asset of NIO, that they combine, you know, a really healthy premium middle class consumer base here. So my best guess is that more and more brands actually would like to get access to this consumer base and, you know, rebrand together with NIO, as they've been doing, for instance, here also with Dixon and other brands that I've just shown. And on top of that, NIO starting to become, for instance, a food incubator or a beverages incubator and stuff like that, in order to have their own brands on top of that, similar to, for instance, also the EP fashion line that they are launching here. And the outcome here is generally that NIO, as their own influencer or KOL here, also in combination with Li Bin as the famous CEO, they can basically create and sell what they like to this loyal base of consumers that are enjoying this new lifestyle and getting the best possible experience on top of their cars. And this is, I think, what Baillie and Gifford also see in their long-term outlook, because I've been crunching the numbers and I'm expecting around $9 billion US dollars in revenues, annual revenues in 2030. And if that's true, if NIO can show those other services based on e-commerce here and also have really good margins on top of that, then I think we also see higher valuation multiples for that. For instance, now for 9 billion in annual revenues on top, that could easily add another 45 billion in valuation to NIO, maybe even more, depending on how fast the business is growing and how high the margins are. But this basically adds on top of the notion that NIO is definitely not a car manufacturer here, but is establishing this lifestyle and ecosystem business here, and coming from this platform thinking with Li Bin as a CEO and co-founder of multiple internet-based platform businesses, much more in a growth mode and looking to kind of establish those kind of internet companies within NIO itself. I'll be sharing my detailed calculations and assumptions based on those revenues that I've been calculating, first with my patrons in a separate post there, and then in the future also definitely included in my upgraded valuation sheet with NIO. So stay tuned for that, and thanks guys for watching and enjoy your weekend.